In today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement, we're talking about the sweet spot for Roth conversions with those who are 65, have a million plus, have a pension. Very small crowd of people out there, but if that is you, you're going to love today's video. And we're going to be implementing and talking about the big, beautiful bill and talk about how this is going to change your Roth conversion plan. And we've done some other videos on this as well, but we really want to dial in, make sure people are well equipped to understand exactly what they need to look for if they're in this new era of this $6,000 per taxpayer tax deduction that we haven't seen before. And so that's what we're going to talk about in today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement. It's going to be packed full of information, so let's get going.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
So before we get into the content, we love to interact with our audience. I want you in the comments to answer, if you are 65 with a pension, million plus, what are you doing with your retirement? What are you planning for? What are we doing with all this information we're talking about? Are we going on trips? Are we giving it to charities, organizations? Are we gifting it to our loved ones? What are we doing? If I'm helping you and you're watching all these videos and I've never talked to you before, what is the value that I'm bringing to your financial plan, your retirement plan, whether you're doing it on their own or whether you're working with an advisor? What does that look like? So help me out here, give me some joy for what I'm doing these videos for, and help me better make my content to ensure that whoever watches this, if you are a subscriber, we want to make sure you get a great experience watching our content here. So let's go ahead and get into the video today. So basically, to give you a short answer of the sweet spots, you already know this answer if you've watched a lot of our videos or been paying attention to this. 12% and 24% are the sweet spots for most people that we see. So we don't know what amount your pension is. We don't know if you have $1 million or $10 million. Most of the people, our clients, people who watch these videos have $1 to $10 million saved. And so we know that it's probably going to be around that amount. Most people watching this video have pensions of anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000 or more. So that's a wide range, but we at least have an idea of what we're looking at here. So we're trying to tailor it to those ranges there. But the reason why the 12% and 24% are so attractive is because there's huge amounts that are above those. So you go from the 12% to the 22%. So almost 100% increase in that. And then for the 24% to the 32%, you're seeing a 25% increase from those brackets. But if you're in the 22% bracket and you're going to the 24%, well, that's only 2%. That's not that big of a difference. Or if you're going from the 10% to the 12%, not that big of a difference either. And again, most of our clients are going to be right in that 12% to 24% range. And so that's why we have those two ranges. So if you find yourself with a lower income, maybe a smaller pension, then maybe that 12% tax bracket is going to be what you're going to look at with Roth conversions. Or if you have a higher pension or a higher amount in tax deferred investments, maybe that's where that 24% sweet spot comes into play. So we're going to break all this down, and I'm going to go off this chart in our tax software that it spit out to give us an idea of what we're looking at here. So let me break down this chart here. So if you're 65, in this example of this chart I'm showing a client who's taking Social Security. They're going to have a pension. They are looking at, should I do a Roth conversion or not? And so this chart shows that if they have a $100,000 pension, they're going to find themselves right there where that cliff is, where that green and blue collide. And so if you look at this chart, that purple shows the taxation of Social Security, which we'll get into. Understand that Social Security is tax-free to 90% of people now, is what they say, which can be true, is what we typically see. And so with that, the other 10% is in that area where they now start to have Social Security tax, and that's only going to play a part if you have a higher income. Now understand, if you have a pension, million plus, you're typically always going to be in a higher tax bracket or the same in retirement. So this is something you're really going to want to pay attention to, is the taxation of Social Security. We'll break that down here today. The blue is going to be your federal tax bracket, so 10, 12%, 22%. And so you see right there where that green comes in. That's that phase out for the $6,000 new tax deduction that you get through the one big beautiful bill if you are 65 years old. And so that's something we're really going to want to pay attention to if that's you. And we're going to talk through this video to see, hey, we don't, why, that's why I'm saying the sweet spot may be 12% or 24%, because there's really no 22% bracket anymore, because you're all in tax there if you convert. If you find your pension at 100,000 and you want to do a $50,000 conversion, there's no more 22% tax rate you're paying. You're paying 24%, 6% federal. Now, understand this doesn't include state taxes, which is a very important part of this decision, because you may be in California and next year you may be in Tennessee where there's zero state tax. And so in that case, maybe you don't do a Roth conversion this year and wait till next year to do a Roth conversion without the state tax issue there. So just things to think about. And so those dotted lines there that you can see, there's only two of them in the chart I'm showing you. Those are the Medicare premium increase that you could see. And so when we look at this 24% sweet spot Roth conversion, we need to pay attention to our Medicare premiums at that point. This is only showing two increases, which could be a $2,600 increase per year. Again, that's per year per taxpayer. So if you're a married couple, you're going to be paying that twice, and that's going to be $5,000 extra on top of the base Medicare premium tier. So that's quite a bit extra than what you could pay if you were lower income than that. And then you could pay up to $10,000 plus with both spouses combined if you're married in extra Medicare premiums. But again, you get the same coverage. And so we have to be aware of how this works if we are going to be going into the 24% bracket. So this video is going to be mostly for those who are 65 or even older. So again, we don't have a lot of people who watch these videos are maybe in their 70s or 80s. Most people reaching out to us are in their 50s and 60s. And so a lot of the content we do are for people, who are around the ages of 55 to 65. But we want to make sure people who are 65 and older get the content they're looking for with this new deduction, and make sure they're well equipped and well educated here. And it's important to understand with this bonus deduction is that this is only going to be a limited time. So this starts in 2025. So you will be able to take advantage of it this year, and it's going to stop in 2028. So limited time, let's make sure we take advantage of it. Also understand whether you itemize or take the standard deduction, you're going to be able to take advantage of this, is how that works. You're also going to be able to keep the other deduction of $3,200 if you're a married couple, or $2,000 if you're single, that you're able to currently deduct, or were formerly currently able to deduct on your taxes if you're 65 or older or above. And so that's how all of that works. And then the other thing to really pay attention to, and that's where that green chart shows you for the phase out for the $6,000 deduction, $12,000 in this case for the example I'm showing you. And the reason why is because that's going to be based off of your income. And so if your income, if you're married filing jointly, is $150,000, any income you have above that is going to start to reduce the amount you get. And as you see, as the more income you have, the less that you're going to get of that enhanced benefit. And so it starts at about 2.6% extra cost. So you're not really paying anything, but you're losing benefit, which is technically a cost to you. And so that's why that green line shows the way it does. And so if you're married filing jointly, it goes up to $250,000. So if your income is $250,000 or more, and that's where you can see on the chart at $200,000, this is showing a $50,000 Social Security amount. And so your, total income would be about $250,000, and that's where that is going to go away. But that means you lost the 6,000 deductions like it didn't even happen. It's like you didn't even get any. So not a fun place to be. But again, remember, this is a bonus deduction. So you weren't going to get it anyways if you have a higher income. I know it's unfortunate, but that's just how it works. And so with this new deduction, with those other deductions, the standard deduction also getting a bump. If you're married filing jointly, you're going to have $46,700 of extra money to be able to do tax-free. And again, it's not extra because you're already expecting some of that, but the total amount of tax-free if you're married is going to be $46,700. So that's going to allow you to take more advantage of the 12% bracket for the next few years if that's what you want to do. So maybe you're already in the 12% bracket. You could also do an extra $12,000 conversion than what you did last year, maybe if you already did the max conversion to the 12%. Also, you get the standard deduction increase as well. So those are all things to be considerate of. Also, this also could be a reason to not take Social Security if you're looking at doing a Roth conversion. So we talk about the sweet spot. If you're thinking of a Roth conversion at 65, should you really take Social Security? Because if you do, you're going to likely force all of that to become taxable, as you can see in the chart with the purple. You're also going to not allow yourself to get as much benefit moving forward. You're also going to cause your spouse not to get the higher of the two when one of you passes, because you only get the higher of the two. So if you pass, your spouse could get the higher amount. And so those are all things to consider. Now, if you pass away at 66, waiting didn't help you at all, right? You didn't get any money in your pocket. You didn't get to see any of the benefits. So again, it's all going to depend on your health. People ask me, when's the best time to take Social Security? It depends. It depends. You tell me when you're going to die, I'll tell you when to take it. So we don't know exactly, but you can understand the value when looking at Roth conversion and tax planning of how that could play a part in helping you convert more, but also helping you not pay tax on your Social Security while also getting a higher benefit. And so when we look at the 12% bracket, right now it goes up to about 6 figures. So it almost goes up to $100,000 if you're married filing jointly without counting all the deductions. And so if we're saying you're going to have about $46,700 of deductions, you're almost looking at $150,000 that you're able to take out of your IRAs or, out from your tax deferred or to Roth convert without having to pay the higher tax brackets or without losing your deductions due to the phase out. And so that can be something to really consider. Now, maybe you do have a pension that's already coming in because you retired at 65. Maybe it's $50,000. Well, you can still take advantage of $100,000 more. And the other good news is you're not facing any Medicare premiums. If you're not taking Social Security, there's no Social Security tax. If you're not taking any capital gains, you don't have to worry about any capital gains tax. And so those are all advantages to make sure you're aware of. So we've got a really good opportunity to take advantage of this. And also, if you're still working, you still have a big opportunity right now. If you're still working 65, you're likely not going to take Social Security because you're going to get reduced if you do, and you don't have your pension yet. And so let's say you're working, making $100,000. This could be a great opportunity to convert at least $50,000 at the 12% bracket would be how that math works with this new deduction. Because again, even if you're working, you're still going to be able to get this. And so, depending on your situation, make sure you're utilizing this. And whenever we look at Roth conversion planning, something's always better than nothing. So maybe you don't want to be more aggressive and going to the 24%, but make sure you're not leaving money on the table and not taking advantage of that 12%. Because I can tell you, based on my understanding and knowledge of what's going on, I don't think that you'll likely see a lower than a 12% bracket as time goes on. Now, you potentially could, depend on your situation. And, that's why we always preface too. It's like a lot of the people who don't watch this channel, maybe they have $500,000 in their IRA and that's all they have. And maybe they have no pension. I probably wouldn't tell them to do a Roth conversion because in that case, anything they take out is going to be in the standard deduction that we're talking about. And so, because their RMD, if they have $1 million, say they're 73, or let's say they have 500,000, their RMD is only $20,000. The standard deduction for a married couple goes up to $31,500. They're going to be in a really good spot of not really having to pay probably any taxes, or so a very small amount of some of their Social Security becomes taxable over that amount. So just understand about your situation there, what to look at. And maybe you're still working and making over $250,000, or maybe all your combined income already is over $250,000. Well, then this isn't something to be worried about. And now you really need to start paying attention to the 24% bracket. And if you're going to find yourself with over that $150,000 of income each year moving forward, then that's where only going up to the 12% bracket may not be enough. You may be only converting pennies when you need to be converting dollars. And so if you think about it that way, what is your pension going to be? If your pension is, $100,000 and your Social Security is, going to be $100,000 between both spouses, well, now you're looking at 85% of that Social Security becoming taxable. Now you're at $185,000. You're already going to be in that 22% bracket, which right now is technically 24.6% because you'd be losing some of that $6,000 deduction. But you understand that you're always going to be in a higher bracket moving forward. And again, if you're in that position, we don't really know what tax rates are going to do moving forward. I never thought they'd go lower, and they certainly have with these extra deductions we've seen here recently. But what are they going to be in 10, 20 years, knowing we still got this debt crisis, knowing we still got government spending a lot of money? Who knows what's going to happen there? And so we need to be prepared for both cases. It could even go lower than what we're seeing now, or is it going to go higher? And most people suggest it is going to go higher, especially knowing we are going to get these tax cuts now. What is it going to look like moving forward there? And so that 22% bracket that you're expected to be in now may not be the 22% bracket. We knew that was supposed to sunset and go to 25%, which makes a 24% seem like a lot of make sense in that case. There's some experts that suggest tax rates could double down the line. So just make sure we're paying attention to that. to know what's going to make sense for that. And so when we look at Roth conversion planning, it all comes down to what tax you're paying now, what do you expect to pay in the future, and then that's how we're going to be making decisions. So whenever we do this for our clients, we don't just make a one-year decision. We don't just guess. We're spending lots of time building out a tax plan and looking at what their future RMD is, what their Social Security taxation, when are they planning to take Social Security, what is their income going to be at from a Medicare premium standpoint, and look at their all-in tax rate or their all-in cost of what their income is going to be. What are their legacy goals? Is one spouse older than the other? Is one spouse less healthy than the other and likely going to pass away earlier? And we have to look at the widow's penalty. And that's why that 24% could even make more sense, is because maybe we pay it at married filing jointly rates, because when they're single, they're always going to be in the higher tax brackets. They're always going to force themselves into that 24% tax bracket. Could be more likely, knowing that tax brackets get cut in half. And so those are all things that we want to realize when making these decisions here. And the key is just understanding what is your specific situation and then making sure you're going from there. And so hopefully this video was helpful for you there and just helping you get a better perspective of what makes sense for your plan. And so go ahead and subscribe to our channel if you feel like this was very valuable content for you, and we'll keep content like this coming along the way. So that's all I've got on today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement.